He picked his mistress over me tonight. 3 years I loved that man. He threw me out like trash. Everyone waited for me to break. I smiled instead, because none of them know the truth about me. I never loved him to keep him. I loved him to bury him. In his world, a thrown-away woman doesn't get to leave. His family always called me the help, the black girl. Tonight he said our 3 years meant nothing. He thinks he broke me. He thinks he won. But I've been waiting 3 years for him to make this mistake. Everything this family owns started with one dead man. His name was David Cole. He was my father. They murdered him and stole his empire. I have the proof. He thinks this empire is his. It never was. It was my father's, and I came back to take it all. His empire was never truly his. This is how I spent 3 years burning a kingdom from the inside. But to understand tonight, you have to go back to the worst night of my life. It started the night they killed my father and thought they killed me too. I was 11 years old the night my whole life burned down. My father was David Cole. He was a money man. A genius with numbers, my mom used to say. He came up from nothing and built a fortune, and somewhere along the way he went into business with a Korean family called the Jungs. My dad put up the brains and most of the money. Old Chairman Jung put up the name and the muscle. Together they built something huge. Ports, banks, building all over the city. People were scared of that empire. They didn't know half of it belonged to a black man from the south side. That was the problem. The Youngs didn't want to share a crown with my father. And you don't ask a man like Chairman Jung to share. You just take. I still remember the smell of smoke. I remember my mom pushing me out a back window and telling me to run. I remember a big hand pulling me into a car before the fire reached the driveway. That hand belonged to Marcus. Marcus was my dad's right-hand man. Quiet, loyal, the only person in that whole world who never lied to me. He got me out that night. My parents didn't make it. The papers said it was an accident. A gas leak. Everybody nodded and moved on. The Young family held a sad little funeral, shook their heads, and quietly took everything my father built. Every dollar, every building, every secret. They thought the Coles were finished. They thought there was nobody left to ask questions. They forgot about the little girl in the back of Marcus's car. Marcus raised me after that. He didn't raise me soft. He told me the truth when I was old enough to hear it. He told me my father was murdered. He told me the proof existed, buried deep, and that one day, if I was smart and patient and brave, I could pull it back into the light. He taught me how money moves, how powerful people hide their sins, how to smile at someone while you count the ways to take them down. Don't rush it, he always said. Rich men don't fall fast. They fall slow, from the inside, when they trust the wrong person. By the time I was 25, I knew exactly who that wrong person was going to be. His name was Jung Hyun-woo, old Chairman Jung's son. The new boss of everything my father built. The man wearing my family's stolen crown. So I made myself a promise. I was going to walk into Jung Hyun-woo's world. I was going to make that man trust me, need me, love me. And then I was going to take back every single thing his family stole and watch his empire turn to ash, the same way mine did. I just didn't plan on it taking 3 years. And I really didn't plan on my own heart getting in the way. You don't walk up to a Mafia boss and ask for a job. You let him find you. I started as a waitress at a private club the Young family owned. It was the kind of place where dangerous men did quiet business over expensive drinks. I poured wine. I cleared plates. I kept my head down and my eyes open. To everyone in that building, I was just the black girl carrying trays. Nobody important. Nobody worth watching. That was exactly what I wanted. It took 2 months for Jung Hyun-woo to notice me. He came in most nights, always in black, always with men around him who watched the doors. He was younger than I expected. Sharp jaw, cold eyes. The kind of handsome that makes you forget he could have you erased with a phone call. He never smiled. He talked to people like they were already disappointing him. The first time he spoke to me, he asked why I wasn't afraid of him. Everyone else was. Should I be? I said. I kept my voice steady. You haven't given me a reason yet. Most people never talked back to him. I think that's what got him. He started asking for my table. Then he started staying late. Then one night he had his driver take me home, and the next morning there were flowers at the club with no card. I knew what I was doing. I'd planned every piece of it. A man like that doesn't want a woman who throws herself at him. He's drowning in those. He wants the one thing he can't buy or scare. So I gave him that. I gave him a woman who looked him in the eye, who didn't need him, who he had to chase, and slowly, the most feared Korean Mafia boss in the city started to fall for the waitress who served his wine. He moved me into his world. A penthouse, a car, closets full of clothes. His people learned my name and learned to be polite, even if their eyes stayed cold. I became his woman. Everybody knew it. For 3 years, I stood next to Jung Hyun-woo at dinners and deals and family events, and I smiled, and I listened, and I remembered everything, because that was the real job. Not loving him, learning him. I learned where the money moved. I learned which judges he owned and which cops he paid. I learned the names of the men who ran his dirty work. And late at night, when he slept and trusted me enough to leave his study unlocked, I learned where the old files were kept. The ones from 20 years ago, the ones with my father's name in them. Piece by piece, year by year, I copied it all. I fed it quietly to the one group of people who wanted the Jung family gone even more than I did, their oldest rivals, and a federal prosecutor who'd been chasing them for a decade. I never gave them enough to move too soon. I gave them just enough to be ready. The closest I ever came to dying was a Tuesday night in his study. I had his old files open, and my phone out, taking pictures, when I heard his footsteps in the hall. There was no time to close anything. So I did the only thing I could think of. I knocked his lamp off the desk, dropped down onto the floor in the dark, and started picking up the pieces like I'd wandered in for a glass of water and bumped it by accident. He found me there, on my knees, gathering broken glass. He helped me up. He kissed my forehead and told me to be more careful. Then he locked the files back in the safe without ever once looking inside. I went back to my room and got sick. Not from fear, from how easy it was to lie to a man who looked at me like that. I was building a bomb, and I was sleeping next to the man it was meant for. Here's the part I never told Marcus. Somewhere in those three years, a piece of me started to love him for real. I hated myself for it. I'd watch Hyun-woo sleep and remind myself what his family did. I'd picture the fire. I'd say my father's name in my head like a prayer, but then morning would come, and Hyun-woo would make me coffee the way I liked it. And for a second, he'd look almost soft, almost human, and I'd feel that dangerous little crack open in my chest. He had moments. He paid for a sick maid's surgery, and told everyone to keep quiet about it. He remembered tiny things I said weeks before. Once, when a business partner disrespected me at a dinner, Hyun-woo went so cold and so quiet that the man apologized 3 times and left. Nobody disrespected me in front of him after that. It would have been easier if he was a monster every minute. He wasn't. That's the trap. Real people are never all bad. And the longer you pretend to love someone, the harder it gets to remember you're pretending. There was one night I think about more than I should. It rained hard and the power went out across the whole building. No guards, no phones, no empire, just us, and a couple of candles. He told me about his father for the first time, how the old man used to lock him in a closet for crying, how he learned to go silent just to survive. For a little while, he wasn't a mafia boss, and I wasn't a spy. We were just 2 people the world had broken in different ways. I almost told him everything that night. I almost set the whole plan on fire for him. Then the lights came back on, and so did he, and so did I. His right-hand man saw it before I did. His name was Shin. Quiet, careful, loyal like a guard dog. Shin never trusted me. I'd catch him watching me across rooms, like he was doing math in his head and not liking the answer. "You ask a lot of questions for a woman who just pours wine," he said to me once. Real soft, so only I could hear. "I like knowing who I'm in a room with," I told him. Old habit. He didn't push it, but he kept watching. And once, Hyun-woo himself held my face in his hands in the dark and asked me, "Who are you, really? Sometimes I look at you and I feel like I'm missing something." My heart stopped. I smiled and kissed him and said, "I'm the only person in your life who isn't scared of you. That's all." He believed me. That was the most dangerous moment of all 3 years. Not because he almost caught me, but because for 1 second I wanted to tell him the truth. I didn't. I went back to my room that night, opened my father's file, and made myself look at the death certificate until the soft feeling went away. Almost. The cracks in us started when the family decided it was time for Hyun-woo to settle down, properly, respectably. A waitress was fine for a few years of fun. That's how they saw me. But a mafia empire needs a real wife. Old money, the right family, the right face. And in their world, the right face was never going to be mine. Her name was Mina. Mina came from a powerful family the Jungs had wanted to tie themselves to for years. She was beautiful in that cold, polished way. Designer everything. A smile like a knife. The first time we met at a family dinner, she looked me up and down and said, loud enough for the table to hear, "Oh, you're the waitress. How sweet." Hyunwoo always did like his little projects. Everyone laughed. Hyunwoo didn't stop them. That was the first sign. His mother loved Mina instantly. The old woman had never said more than 10 cold words to me in 3 years. With Mina, she lit right up. Finally, I heard her tell Hyunwoo, a woman who fits this family. Not this. She waved her hand at me like she was shooing a fly. Charity case you dragged in off the street. Mina started showing up everywhere. At dinners, at the office, at events that used to be mine. She'd touch his arm in front of me. She'd accidentally call me the help in front of guests. One night, she walked into my bedroom, the one in his penthouse, and started going through my closet like she was deciding what to keep. "You should start packing," she said sweetly. "A man like Hyunwoo was always going to marry up. You didn't actually think you'd stay, did you? Look at you. Look at me." I didn't say anything. I just watched her and thought about how good it was going to feel when she was standing in the rubble too. But the truth is, it still hurt, because Hyunwoo let it happen. He watched his family and his new woman tear me down day after day, and he did nothing. The man who once froze a whole room for disrespecting me suddenly couldn't see it at all. And then came the night he made it official. It was a big party at the family's estate. Gold doors, marble columns, guards on every step, a row of black cars out front. Half the city's powerful people were there. I thought it was just another event. I wore the champagne gown Hyunwoo once said made me look like I belonged in his world. I should have known something was wrong by the way Shin wouldn't look at me. Halfway through the night, Hyunwoo tapped a glass and got everyone's attention. Mina floated up beside him in a shimmering gold dress and wrapped both hands around his arm. He didn't pull away. "I want to make something clear tonight," he said in that cold, calm voice. "Some of you have wondered about my arrangement these past few years." He glanced at me, just glanced like I was a chair. "That's over. Mina and I will be married this spring. She is the future of this family." The room clapped. Mina beamed. And I stood there in my champagne gown, in front of 300 people, getting thrown away like I never mattered at all. Hyunwoo walked over to me, quiet so only the closest people could hear. "Don't make a scene," he said. "You were good company, but you understand. You were never going to be a Jung." He actually reached into his jacket and held out an envelope. "Money. For your trouble. Be smart. Take it and go. 3 years. 3 years of my life." And he handed me an envelope like I was a tip. Mina watched from a few feet away, smiling, waiting for me to cry. His mother watched too, satisfied at last. The whole room watched the waitress get put in her place, and something in me went very, very quiet. Because here's the thing they didn't understand. That little crack in my heart, the soft part that had started to love him, his betrayal just slammed it shut. Forever. He thought he was breaking me. He was actually setting me free. The last thing holding my hand back was the hope that maybe, somewhere in there, he was better than his family. He wasn't. He was exactly like the men who killed my father. I didn't take the envelope. I looked up at him, and I smiled, and I said the only true thing I'd said to him in 3 years. "You're right, Hyunwoo. I was never going to be a Jung." I leaned in. "I'm a Cole." He didn't understand it yet. He just frowned, confused, like the words scratched at something old in his memory. Then I turned and walked out, past the gold doors, past the guards who wouldn't meet my eyes, down the steps to my car, where the night air was cool and clean. The tears came on those stairs, and I let them fall. But my hand around my keys was steady, and I did not look back. Not once. He would understand soon. I called Marcus from the car. My hands weren't even shaking. "It's time," I said. "You sure?" he asked. He always asked. "Once we pull this trigger, there's no putting it back." "He chose tonight," I said. "Not me. Send it all." For 3 years I'd been holding the pieces apart, so they couldn't go off too early. Now I put them together. The federal prosecutor got the full file at midnight. 20 years of the Jung family's crimes, names, dates, accounts, all of it. Plus the part they thought was buried forever, the proof, in their own old chairman's handwriting, that David Cole had been murdered and his share of the empire stolen. The rival families got their copy too, the one that showed every weak point in the Jung operation, every place to push. And my lawyers, the ones I'd quietly hired 2 years before, paid for with money Marcus had protected from the fire, filed the papers that morning. Because here's what the Jungs never checked. When they stole my father's empire, they were sloppy. They forged his signature on transfers, but they never cleaned up the original ownership. On paper, deep down under all the lies, a huge piece of that empire still legally traced back to David Cole. And David Cole had one living heir, me. By sunrise, the bomb I'd spent 3 years building was already going off, and Jung Hyun-woo was still asleep, dreaming about his spring wedding, with no idea his whole world was already on fire. But I didn't want him to just lose it quietly in a courtroom. After what they did to my father, after what he did to me in front of 300 people. No. I wanted him to look me in the eyes when he found out. I wanted the whole room to watch, so I let his engagement party plans go forward. I let Mina pick her dress. I let his mother send out the invitations. I even let them think I'd run away with my tail between my legs. And then I showed up. The engagement party was the biggest night the Jung family had thrown in years. Same powerful crowd. Cameras. Champagne. Mina in white, glowing, finally getting the crown she'd schemed for. Hyunwoo by her side, cold and proud, the king of everything. I walked in wearing black, with Marcus on one side and my lawyer on the other. The room went quiet. People whispered. The waitress was back, and she didn't look like a waitress anymore. Hyunwoo's face went hard. You shouldn't be here, he said. He nodded at Shin. Get her out. Shin started toward me. He stopped when my lawyer held up a thick stack of papers. I wouldn't, my lawyer said calmly. Touching, Miss. Cole right now would be a very expensive mistake. Cole? Hyunwoo's mother said sharply. The colour drained out of her face. She remembered the name. Of course she did. That's not possible. It's very possible, I said. I walked to the middle of the room, slow, so everyone could see. 22 years ago, this family went into business with a man named David Cole. He built most of what you see in this room. The money, the buildings, the name people are scared of. And when he became too important to push around, Chairman Jung had him murdered and burned his house down with his family inside. I looked right at Hyunwoo. Your father killed mine, and then you all spent 20 years spending his money. The whispers turned into a roar. This is insane, Mina snapped. She's the waitress. She's lying for attention. Hyunwoo, do something. It's all documented, my lawyer said, and started handing papers to the nearest guests. Ownership records, bank transfers, and a signed account in the late Chairman Young's own hand of how David Cole died. He paused. Copies are also, as of last night, in the hands of a federal prosecutor. That word, prosecutor, went through the room like ice water. People started backing toward the doors. In that world, you don't want to be standing next to a family the feds are about to take apart. Hyunwoo's phone started buzzing. Then Shin's. Then every important man in the room reached for his pocket at the same time. I watched it happen on Hyunwoo's face. The calls, the panic, the realization. His accounts were freezing. His partners were running. His rivals were already moving in on the territory my files had just cracked wide open. His empire was coming down around him in real time, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. 3 years, he said. He looked at me like he'd never seen me before. 3 years you were. What was any of it? A job, I said quietly. From the first night I poured your wine, I came here to take back what your family stole, and to watch you lose everything. Every smile, every word. I was loving you to destroy you, Hyunwoo. I let that land, and you made it so easy when you threw me away. His legs went out from under him. The most feared man in the city, dropped to his knees right there on the marble. In front of the cameras, in front of the crowd, in front of the woman in white he'd picked over me. Simone. His voice cracked. I didn't know about your father, I swear it. That was my father, not me, please. Whatever you want. I'll give you everything. Just don't do this. You don't have everything anymore, I said. That's the point. It was never yours to give. Mina figured out which way the wind was blowing fast. The second the money disappeared, So did her love. She stepped away from Hyunwoo like he was on fire. "You knew about this?" she said to him, loud, playing to the room. "You let me get tied to a family that's about to be arrested? My father will hear about this. We are done." She grabbed her purse and walked out in her white dress, and she didn't look back once. She only ever wanted the crown. The second the crown turned to dust, she was gone. That's all she ever was. Shin, his right-hand man, didn't move to stop me. He just looked at me for a long moment, and then he gave me one small nod, like a man who'd known the truth for years, and was almost relieved to finally hear it said out loud. "I told him," he said quietly, as he passed me on his way to the door. "I told him you asked too many questions." Then he was gone too. Loyalty only runs as far as the paycheck, in a world like that. Hyunwoo's mother sat down hard in a chair, staring at nothing, finally understanding that the charity case she sneered at for 3 years had been holding the family's whole life in her hands the entire time. And me? I stood in the middle of that beautiful falling room, and I waited to feel happy. It didn't come the way I thought it would. There was no big rush of joy. There was just a deep, tired quiet, like setting down something heavy you've been carrying so long you forgot it had weight. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. "Your dad would be proud," he said softly. "You did it clean. You did it right." I looked at Hyunwoo on his knees, and for one strange second, the soft part of me that he'd killed twitched one last time. A small, sad piece of me would always wonder what we could have been in some other life where his family hadn't murdered mine. But that life never existed. He made sure of that the night he handed me an envelope. "Goodbye, Hyunwoo," I said, and I walked out of that room, past the cameras, past the whispers, with my head up, the same way I'd wanted to walk for 22 years. This time, nobody was waiting for me to cry. And I didn't. That was a year ago. The Young Empire is gone. The prosecutor's case took most of them down. The rivals took the rest. The name people used to be scared of doesn't mean anything now. Hyunwoo lost the company, the houses, the money, all of it. Last I heard, he's just a man in a small apartment, paying lawyers he can barely afford, telling anyone who'll listen about the woman who brought down his world. I got my father's name back. The parts of the empire that were legally his came to me, and I rebuilt them clean. Real businesses, honest money. My dad's name back on the door where it belonged. Marcus runs operations with me. He finally smiles now. I kept the little club too, the one where I poured wine for 3 years. I turned it into something my father would have been proud of. The same people who used to snap their fingers at the help walk past it now and have no idea who owns it. That's fine. I don't need them to know. I know. I think about my father every day. I think I made the right call, but I want to be honest with you about something, because it matters. Revenge cost me something too. I gave 3 years of my life to hating a man, and in the middle of all that hate, I had to kill the soft parts of myself just to survive it. You don't walk out of something like that all the way clean. You walk out free, but you leave pieces behind. So if you take anything from my story, take this. Be careful who you decide is beneath you. The woman pouring your wine, the person you call the help, the one you think you can throw away with an envelope. You have no idea what they've lived through or what they're holding in their hands. Cruelty always finds its way home, every single time. And if you're the one who's been thrown away, hear me. Don't let them see you break. Don't waste your life only burning down the people who hurt you. Burn what you have to burn. Then build something of your own, and walk into it and choose yourself. Because the best revenge was never destroying him. The best revenge was becoming a woman he could never, ever break again. So let me leave you with one question. If the people who looked down on you knew what you were really capable of, would they have ever dared to treat you that way? If this story moved you, drop a comment and tell me the moment you knew Hyunwoo had picked the wrong woman to betray. And if you're new to Mafia Heartbeat, subscribe and stay close. Because the next woman they underestimate is holding an even bigger secret, and you will not want to miss the night it all comes out.